What's going on, Falcons fans? I'm Tori McElhaney, joined by Will McFadden and head coach Raheem Morris. We are on Radio Row at the NFL Scouting Combine. Raheem, welcome to our table and to our Radio Row setup. It's a lot nicer this year than it was last year, isn't it?
This is a nice one. And I don't remember last year. It feels like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't know Taryn was here, and Will replaced Taryn. She's going to be a little upset about that. But it's always good to sit down with friendly faces.
I know. You see us all the time in the building. And speaking of friendly faces, that actually leads me into my first question. This is the first time that we're getting a chance to talk to you about Jeff Ulbrich coming back to Atlanta as the defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. And I had the chance to sit down with him his very first day. And he made the comment that I'm a guy that's different than I was 4 years ago. And now you were here with him 4 years ago. How is he different now?
First off, when you talk about that, you got to talk about the decision that went into bringing Jeff back. Mm-hmm. And those decisions are always hard when you got to make those changes. You got to be able to sit down and evaluate yourself after the season to find out what changes you make on staff, if you make any at all. Making those changes are always hard, and those are always the hardest decisions you got to make in football. But when you have an opportunity to go really interview a bunch of great candidates and a bunch of great guys and people you got so much respect for in the National Football League, that is a lot of fun. And when you can start off with a bunch of guys who've called the game, who've been around the game, who've done a lot of good things, and Jeff Ulbrich went right to the top of that list because of experience the last 3 or 4 years of being able to call it and being able to do different things, being able to settle himself down, being able to have a different understanding. And when he comes and he brings that vibe, it really feels amazing to be able to pair it with him and some of the growth that we've both had from being apart and now being able to get back together. And you just get such an appreciation for what we do and how we do it, different areas, different walks of life, that is just exciting.
And, I was here the first time around with Jeff and you, and I kind of saw the way that you guys interacted, but also the way that he interacted with players and the guys in the locker room and his ability as a teacher to develop guys and really get the most out of them. Like, how much of a part of what he brings in that aspect was the decision to bring him back?
It really starts with, you want to look for great teachers. And not only great teachers, but confidants. You want to look for great people. You want to look for people that fit our ethos. And him being in the building didn't hurt, right? You're talking about bringing him around people that you're going to have to deal with constantly and talk to and be a part of. We got a really collaborative group. When you're talking about Terry, Greg Beatles, you're talking about Arthur Blank, and all of us having the ability to sit down in these rooms. And when you can bring back a familiar face, one that's beloved, one that fits all of the markers that you look for a great coach, that's really exciting for us as an organization.
You talked a lot the first time that we spoke back in January, which is actually the last time that we spoke this year, about the evaluations and going and looking inward. And that's something that I know in your scrums and everything that you've done today so far, you've talked a lot about how that's been such a big part of what you and the staff has done over the course of the last couple of months. I'm just curious, from a defensive perspective specifically, we'll get into offense in a minute, what did you learn about this group and where it needs to go?
That learning's still going, but it's just one of those things where you want to find out what you did well, right? When you come off a season, and like I said at the end of the year in that last press conference that we talked, it was disappointing because of how we ended and what we could have done, right? And those are the things that make people excited about it also. But at the same time, it's like, hey, you want to go back and evaluate what you did well also, right? You want to be able to take those things you did well and make them repeatable. And then you want to go find out what you want to do better, and you want to find out how to add to that. Hence the hiring of a Jeff Ulbrich, a Nate Ollie, a Mike Rudenberg, and be able to bring those kind of guys in to be able to settle some of those things down, bring some of the different ideas, make some of those things better, and let's move forward to where we can be the best version of ourselves. And those are all things that are fun that we talk about on defense. No different than offense, right? You're changing of the quarterback. What can he do differently? How can we change some of the things and make it even better for us on offense? And I believe Zach Robinson and TJ Yates and DJ Williams and Dwayne Lepford and all these guys, they're able to go in labs too and find out what we can do better from a whole standpoint across the board, no different what Marquise Williams is doing on special teams. It's a very exciting time in Atlanta, right? Obviously, you got some very eager, hungry, disappointed coaches that want to go out there and find ways to win. You never want to rush the season, but you can't wait every day till the season starts.
Yeah, talking about moving forward in that next season, there are 4 players that I just keep thinking about a lot this offseason. Braylon Trice, DeMarco Hellams, Brandon Dorless, Ruka Rororo. What did you see from those young guys and kind of their continued development across the season?
Obviously when you talked about those guys, you talk about a bunch of guys that that hit some injuries last year and at some critical times. You know, you start with DeMarco when it happened in training camp. That hurt you with the guys you thought was going to be really competitive, playing for you in the back end, being into some good things. You know, built of all the stuff that we love. He brings a different type of toughness for us. You really like what he can come. Then it went right to Trice, getting hurt within a couple of days apart, or the same day actually. Yeah. And really the guy that you were hoping to add to some of the pass rush, bring some of that toughness and physicality to the building that you drafted from last year. And then you actually mentioned Rook. And Rook actually got hurt in the training camp. I don't know if people really know. He had the wrist stuff. He was able to be just a pass rusher. Then he got going week 4, hurt the ankle, missed a couple games, able to bounce back. But he showed us a small sample size of what he can be. And I can't even remember who you just mentioned last, but
Dorless.
Dorless, the same way. You know, Dorless ended the season with something on practice squad. But, you know, like all of those things and all of those people you look forward to adding to this new crop of guys that we're going to bring in, right? So people forget about that unit and their development and what they went through. And then having the end of the year come about and be able to sit down with everybody that I mentioned before and talk about the 360 development that we talked about, they're all on the right path. And if they're not, we're in the process of getting them on the right path right now so they can show and improve on what we can do as a whole.
Let's talk a bit more about some developmental stuff and y'all's developmental plan, specifically about Michael Penix Jr.
Sure.
And this is a guy who had 3 games. He had an opportunity to play and get some of those like truly live dirty pockets. When you look at
that's a good term.
I know,
truly
right?
live dirty pockets.
Truly live
Love
dirty
it.
pockets. When you look at what he did in those 3 games, what kind of homework did you give him going into this offseason, knowing that he's going to be the guy in 2025?
So it was really, you lean on some of the leadership qualities and some of the things you're talking about, right? And like the first thing you want to talk about is, you know, you got the veteran quarterbacks, and you always hear about the veteran quarterbacks getting with their guys. And you always hear about the veteran quarterbacks being able to go lead their own throwing sessions, talking about getting with your guys, formulating a schedule for them, helping them do some of those things and putting into a category where he can try to line some of those things up. And you can lean on one of the all-time Falcons of all time when you're talking about Matt Ryan.
Yep.
Right? Matt Ryan's a guy that you got to respect his process and what he was able to do from a ramping up arm and throwing mentality and some of those type of things. So, like, it's his job to go seek that knowledge from Matt. And it's our job to make the connection, which has already been made. And you want to find ways to get those guys together so he can go out and be the best version of himself and continue to grow and develop. And the way you do that is you lean on those type of guys. You know, obviously, the coaches will have our time frame when we get a chance to get with them. But there's other things within the development process that you got to go through, and you watch them throughout the season, right? Remember, he had whatever the amount of weeks of as a backup, and you watch them grow with our strength staff. You watch them grow with our nutritionists. You watch them grow with our trainers across the board. You watch them grow with his young coaches, whether it be DJ or TJ, and you watch those guys develop him throughout the process. So when we put him in there, you felt really confident that he was going to be able to be as poised as he was and be to have the ultimate success that he did. And there's still more left. And it's our job to go get the most out of him. And like you mentioned it, but I summarized it when I talked about the 360, but that's what that is. It's a 360 development. Player development, sports development, on field, off the field, developing a routine and rhythm, and those are all things that he's got in his homework bag that I'm sure he's been doing ultimately until the time we can see him again.
Let's talk about 365 development, which is,
man,
if you think back to a year ago when you saw Michael Penix Jr., you know, private workouts, combine, things like that, were there parts of his game that you identified that said, okay, like these are areas that we can work to improve? And then if you look at where he is now, did you see some improvement in those areas that lead you to believe, hey, this guy can continue to get better and improve in the things we identify?
Well, that is a great one, Will, because, you know, you beat everybody up in this process, right? You go out and you talk about the amazing arm talent down the field, throwing the one-on-one shots to Rome or to all of his wideouts that he had last year, and being able to go to Polk and all those guys and being able to go through that process was amazing. Right, you saw those things. You talked about really honing him down, and can he layer the football, and can he throw the check down, and can he be consistent, making the easy throws. And like, we were so wrong when it came to those things when you actually got him in the building. You got him in the building, you go through that process, and you watch it, and you're like, wow, he's farther along than even I thought. And then you say, okay, let's find a way to get this guy and be able to make him go through a progression in our progression and how we want to do it. And we kind of seen a lot of those things on tape, which you got excited about. And then you get a chance to watch him go out there and lead, and to be able to take that third level of, hey, seeing things ahead of time, being able to communicate with his coaches, and all those things that he's been developing. So you talk about that 5%, like there was some parts that we were wrong about, even in the evaluation process, that he came in and showed us that we were wrong about. Or he got better at it without us knowing. And there's always going to be things in the National Football League that's going to happen. Obviously getting in the huddle, having to display the long play call when you're a quarterback, when you used to be in a line of scrimmage in college. So all of those things he did, he really brought into, he really captured it, he really owned the moment, and he got a chance to show us a little bit at the end with a small sample size.
I got one more for Michael. How many times did you watch that throw to Kaderil Hodge in the Carolina game? Because I think I rewound that 20 times down the left sideline, the first throw of the game.
You know what's funny as well is like I can tell you that about a few throws. I can tell you about the Kaderil Hodge one that we missed down the middle of the field versus Washington. That was an absolute dime. And then you watch the whole shot versus Carolina. You watch some of the throws that he made to Drake. And then even in practice, some of the things that we were able to marvel over that he was able to do. And even when you go and you're able to coach him and you watch some of the plays that he makes in practice and him being able to come back and turn around and look at Zach or myself or TJ and DJ and be explain exactly what he was looking at, it's just like, that was a lot of J's right there. But those are the things that really make you excited about the young man and where we can go. And ultimately, let's be honest, that's creating the buzz for us. Having that solid piece ready to go.
Do you feel differently going into this offseason and knowing what you need to do compared to what last offseason was, and kind of having the question of solidifying a quarterback position, and now you feel like you have solidified that
Tori,
to this point?
Differently, yes. Different spots, yes. Last year we had to solidify the quarterback position, made that really clear. And I think the organization really committed to that and, took a lot of criticism for it, for whatever. But we had to go solidify that position for the short term and long term, and we felt like we did. And now we got to go solidify some of our rush, some of the things that we want to do, while still adding to our really, really good roster, in my opinion. And if we can do those things, that'll give us a chance to compete at the highest level. And we're at the point where we're not talking about it. We got to go out there and do it. And I think the guys and the coaches and the building and the people that we're a part of are all fired up to go do those things.
All right, last question, we'll let you go. We're at the Combine, if you had the chance to do any of the on-field
Nothing.
No. Wait. We have a good question. If you had the chance to do any of the on-field workouts, which one would you be the worst at?
The worst at?
The worst, not the best, the worst.
Are we talking about the 40-whatever-year-old Raheem, or are we talking about Raheem coming out?
Raheem coming out.
Oh, man, Raheem coming out.
Yeah.
Raheem coming out wasn't a good enough football player to be at the Combine. First of all, let's start there.
I want to go on the record about that.
Clearly the worst at. I'd have to say 40, because these guys nowadays, they are blazers. Yeah. I don't know where all this speed has come from. The water must be different, but these guys can absolutely run better than everybody. Some of the advances we made in the sports science world and player performance and things of that nature is why we've really invested into it in our building, and some of the things that we've been able to do with these guys' athleticism coming out has really shown. And I'd have to say running with these guys, because these guys absolutely can run.
Yeah.
I can jump with a lot of people. I can move with a lot of people. I had great ball skills. But the way
speed.
The way these guys run, it's unbelievable.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us and
Appreciate
coming
it,
by Radio Row. Enjoy the rest of your day. I know you got a lot more people to talk to.
I'll try to, but that David Bassett, he won't leave me alone. So.
I know. He never does. Thanks, Rob.
Have a good one.